Good morning and thanks so much for tuning in. Happy Monday to you. This is Straight Talk on BQ Prime. My name is Alex Matthew and with me is Hiral Dadia. Happy Monday, Hiral.
Good morning and happy Monday to you as well. In fact, a happy one for India with all the medals or whatever we've got so far with the World Athletics Championship. I mean, the first gold that Neeraj Chopra has got us.
Absolutely. So there's positive on the athletics front, and also the setup is looking reasonably good for the Indian equity markets, because across the board, the Asian markets are up, and particularly China, because of that announcement that the government made on the stamp duty in the Chinese equity markets as a kind of a lure to bring investors back. Of course, investors have been exiting wholesale from China on the expectation that growth will be much lower than expectations.
Absolutely. And due to that, if you see GIFT Nifty as well, the sentiment has turned positive right now. You are seeing that positivity in today's session, in spite the commentary that we've been hearing over the weekend, that today's session would be muted. That does not seem to be the scenario, at least in the first half of the trading session. But the second half will probably tell us if there is any profit booking that comes in.
And the second half will be also something to watch because of Reliance Industries. We'll get to that in just a bit. But let's talk about the setup in terms of the key levels, Hiral, to watch out for the benchmark as well as the Bank Nifty.
Right. So overall, yes, Bank Nifty is important, but let's quickly see in terms of the expectation. Overall was that it could be a slightly listless session today. The technicals are deteriorating and that could actually dent the market sentiment as well. If you see in terms of Nifty 50, we've seen profit booking near the 20-day SMA, which is the simple day moving average. And we've closed below the 50-day SMA as well, which is 19,350. So that is the level which could be the trend decider from here on as well. If we are able to close about 19,350, then we could bounce back to levels of 19,450 and then to 19,575. But if we are below the 19,230 mark, then selling pressure could accelerate as well. Now, talking about Bank Nifty, it's interesting to see how it's broken the 4-week losing streak. Though we ended in the negative, but on a weekly basis, there was a positive momentum there. There is some bit of consolidation that we are seeing in terms of Bank Nifty as well, but the base is now slightly shifted upwards, where we are seeing buying levels emerge at lower levels, specifically in the PSU banking space, right? So on the lower side, 44,000 is the key support level that we are watching out for in terms of Bank Nifty. And from there on, the immediate hurdle will be 45,000 that we will be looking out for. Below 44,000, if we go below that, we could retest 43,750 to 43,500. But overall, the setup with regards to Bank Nifty looks quite positive, at least from a weekly perspective. So let's see where we are headed from here on. And the key today in terms of the deciding factor is going to be a Reliance Industries, because what's interesting is usually the AGM happens at 11 o'clock. Today, the AGM is at 2 o'clock, right? So the reaction time for the markets is going to be just an hour and a half in terms of the announcements that come in.
Yeah, and usually it is used as a stage to make forward-looking statements. And we've seen announcements like the Geophone, we've seen announcements, including announcements on the succession for the group. But this time around, I think it'll be interesting from the perspective of new energy as a business. What updates are there with regard to that business? Because a lot of the development that's happening, even in Jamnagar, Hiral, has to do with the new energy business and the hydrogen project. So that's certainly something to watch. We also saw a recent update on the possibility of an additional stake sale in retail, right? So that's certainly something that you can expect to hear about in the Reliance AGM. Apart from that, the possible listing of the retail business separately, the listing of the Jio business, and we're also talking about the telecom business from the perspective of the 5G rollout. How is that going to pan out? They have certain targets heading into December of this year, whether they're on track. What else can we expect in terms of devices that they will launch to support their services? And finally, any updates at all about Jio Financial Services? Because we saw on Friday, Hiral, that it broke out of that dreaded lower circuit. It was very volatile, wobbly in trade, but it ended with gains on Friday.
Absolutely. And that's an interesting factor to watch out for in terms of Jio Financial Services, in terms of what happens in today's session as well. But very interesting data that we just tried to pull up. I'm not sure if the graphics would have been made because we sent it pretty late to them. But in the last 3 AGMs, if you talk about 2022, 2021, and 2020, in 2 out of the 3 years, the stock has ended in the negative. So last year, Reliance ended with cuts of around 0.8%. There you see it on the screens. In 2021, the stock ended with cuts of around 2.4%, whereas in 2020, that was the year where we saw gains of around 1.7% in terms of close. But the gyrations, if you see in terms of intraday highs and lows, have been absolutely high on the day of the AGM. So it's going to be an interesting day in terms of today's session as well, to understand and see how the stock performs overall in trade.
Certainly. So about 10% of the benchmark Nifty 50 will effectively move the benchmark if you think about it. But let's shift gears and talk about a few stories that came up over the weekend. And this is quite significant. The first one has to do with the public sector bank chiefs, the chairpersons, as well as the managing directors. And there are considerations right now about extending the tenure of these individuals. We've got Janani joining, and she broke this story. Janani, good morning. What can you tell us about the context? I believe this has to do with the buzz around SBI chairman's extension.
Indeed. Good morning, Alex and Hiral. The government is mulling over a proposal whether or not to extend, the tenure for chairpersons and managing directors. Now, this will be by 2 years. This could potentially put managing directors' term extension from 60 to 62, and also for public sector bank chairmen, it could go to 65. So what we're looking at here is the possibility that this could in fact affect, like you said, SBI chairperson Dinesh Kumar Kara's term extension. There was already a buzz that his term might be extended by 10 months. But when we're looking at this in particular, SBI has a norm slightly different from other public sector banks. So this could bode certainly very well for the bank's continuity in terms of its strategy and how it plans out going forward. Also, such a move will impact other public sector banks. This is Bank of Baroda, Syndicate Bank, PNB, IDBI, Bank of India, Punjab Sind Bank, Union Bank, so on and so forth. And also the public insurer, LIC, could also be impacted by this particular move, as it could bode well in terms of extending their chairman term limits. That's it from here from me. Back to you.
Thank you, Janani. So a lot of your PSU banks that could be in focus on the back of this news. But the other part of the story that Janani has been tracking, and this is with regards to the automobile spaces, where the FinMin has received a proposal to consider priority sector lending for EVs. Now, this is going to be an interesting move to watch out for as well, because this will help adoption with regards to electric vehicles. Janani is standing by again with us to give us more. Janani, what would this actually mean for the sector, and which are the companies do you think could see an impact as well?
Yeah, here. What it could mean is possibility of more loans at a better interest rate, better visibility in terms of that in priority lending category. Now, currently, the RBI has 7 categories for the priority sector lending that they tell banks to lend. This is agriculture, MSMEs, export credit, education, housing, social infrastructure, and renewable energy. Talking of renewable energy, it does not spell out EVs so far. And this has been a proposal that has been pushed by Niti Aayog in the past, by SBI too in 2019. They're trying to get EVs included, not just 4-wheelers, but 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers, the entire gamut to be included in priority sector lending. Now, this would, of course, make it that now priority sector lending, as we know, is 40% of adjusted net bank credit is given to priority sector categories. And this could, of course, give them more visibility. Off the top of my mind, some of the ones that could be impacted are Tata Motors, TVS, M&M, Mahindra & Mahindra, and even, of course, Hero Motorcorp, so to speak. So I guess we'll have to see how this pans out really. But considering that they have not gotten a lot of loans so far, EV sector in particular, we're not sure whether this will just be limited to EVs in particular, whether this will extend to solar and other forms of new and renewable energy like green hydrogen, green ammonia. These are all moving parts, and nothing is fluid as of yet. Nothing is fixed as of yet. It's all fluid. So we'll have to see how it turns out.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for those updates, Janani, and certainly a space to watch. Just a little context here, and here this is important to look at as well. We've seen banks a little wary of lending in the electric vehicle space because we have to understand that this is effectively a secured loan, and the vehicle itself becomes the mortgage to the loan that you're taking. And EVs generally don't have a very high resale value. So from the lender's perspective, lending to an individual and then have the value of the underlying asset deteriorate very sharply, it's a little bit of a risk when you talk about the pricing of those loans, as a result of which you've generally seen that these EV loans are slightly higher. And the other question is, you have a lot of buckets within the priority sector lending category, most largest of which is the agriculture space. So whether or not banks will still be nudged, even if this comes to pass, to lend to the EV space if they don't think that it makes business sense, is a question.
But what's interesting, what I've heard from on ground is that PSUs specifically have been really optimistic in terms of lending to EVs, specifically on the two-wheeler side. And what they're trying to do is club the deal with the bike as well as give them an extra battery combined to it as well. So say, for example, if your bike is costing you X and the battery is Y, they actually give you a loan for X plus Y.
Interesting.
Right? So that's the way they've already started doing it. And if I'm not mistaken, I've heard of Bank of Baroda, SBI, majority in terms of people who've told me that they've taken their loans from Bank of Baroda and SBI for their two-wheeler.
So, and another aspect within the space is, of course, a majority of the EVs that are sold are, in fact, two-wheelers. That's the most volume. But generally, if you think about the two-wheeler space, you don't see a lot of lending because the ticket sizes are much lower as compared to, of course, four-wheelers. But here, with the removal of the FAME advantage that you saw just a short while back, the prices of EV two-wheelers are once again going up. And they're generally above that 1 lakh 10,000 mark. For the relatively higher powered electric
It's actually
vehicles.
going up to 160, 170 as well, if you have to compare all the brands that have come in.
No, certainly. So, which is why it opens the door for lending in the space as well. And because people would need to have that financing in order to go for something like this. But certainly a space to watch. In the meanwhile, in fact, let's move on and talk about the next topic, which has to do with Larsen and Toubro. And we've spoken about this development in the recent past. It has to do with the buyback. We've got Varsha standing by to give us more details here. Varsha, what are the latest here? Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. So last month, L&T announced almost 10,000 crore share buyback, the first in its history. Now, the company will be buying back almost 3.33 crore shares of face value of 2 each. The maximum price of the share buyback has been set at rupees 3,000, which is at premium of 13.9% to current market price, and will be done through the tender offer route. Also, the total number of shares that the company will buy back amount to 2.4% of the total equity. Timeline for the opening and closing of the share buyback is yet to be disclosed. Now, on 26th August, company announced that it has set September 12 as the record date for its buyback. Now, what is the record date? The date set by the company to decide the shareholders who are eligible to receive the offer. To be eligible for a buyback offer, the share should be in the demat account on the record date. Now, this is not the first time that L&T has proposed a buyback. Back in August 2018, the board had approved a buyback of almost 9,000 crore. However, it was rejected by SEBI on grounds that the post buyback, the company would have a debt to equity ratio of more than 2, which was not in compliance with the Companies Act and SEBI norms. The debt to equity ratio shall not exceed 2:1 after buyback. But this time around, L&T is prepared. Now, the company's debt to equity ratio is almost 1.06 times as of June 2023, according to the Q1 24 investor presentation. Now, since buyback, shares of L&T have risen over 5% to a record high of 2,756 since the buyback announcement was made. The stock ended Friday's session lower at rupees 2,632. Now, if the analysts who are tracking this stock, so out of 41 analysts tracking the company, 38 have buy rating, while 1 recommended hold and 2 of them recommended sell with return potential of 7.4%. Now, the reason why L&T is doing this buyback, the buyback is a part of L&T's plan to improve its return on equity as part of group's Lakshya 2026 plan. Now, buyback is expected to boost L&T's earning per share and return on equity. Now, when a company buy back its own stock, it reduces the number of outstanding shares, which enhances the EPS and also the return on equity.
Certainly.
Thanks, Pasha, for getting us the details. It's going to be interesting because it's still at a premium. But the key is that L&T has always been, one of the portfolio companies where people do not really want to sell, right?
Yeah.
So whether there will be a good amount of interest in the buyback or not from an investor perspective is what we need to see, because overall from a current market, yes, it is at a premium, but an interesting one to watch out for, because majority of the analysts are of the opinion that you should not tender to a L&D buyback. So let's see how it pans out once the dates are announced. But moving on, Zomato is another one that is in focus as well. In fact, last week we did see a block deal on Zomato. Today the lock-in also ends, with regards to SoftBank. So an interesting block deal that could be that would be on the cards. Plus, you have Zepto that has come in as well as competition. Mika standing by to get us more. Mika, what does all of this actually mean for a Zomato and trade today?
Good morning. So things are looking out to be more positive for Zomato, especially its quick commerce segment, which is popularly known as Blinkit, which most investors scribbled out to be a failure. The current revelations are due to its private competitor Zepto, that could drive Blinkit, as Zepto becomes the first unicorn in 2023. The company just announced that it finished a $200 million round at a $1.4 billion valuation in a difficult fundraising environment. The current valuation is also 55% higher than what its last fundraise was in May 2022. And Zepto is also targeting a 2025 listing after it achieves company-wide profitability. Now, when we come to Blinkit's comparison with Zepto, Blinkit does operate on a larger scale than Zepto and recorded a better performance in its recent quarter. The daily order value stands at 400,000 versus Zepto's 300,000, and Blinkit's average order value is also 90 rupees more than Zepto's range. The company also has a more number of dark stores in its supply chain and has a gross merchandise value of $1.1 billion. There are also two other developments that could drive possible growth for Zomato. Recently, this month, it rolled out a 2 rupee platform fee, which also was 3 rupees to most users. The platform fee is levied per order, irrespective of the cart value, and applies to all users, including the ones enrolled in the Zomato Gold loyalty program. Now, this introduction of the nominal fee is seen as an attempt by Zomato to explore new avenues to improve its profitability and enhance its overall performance. Furthermore, as you mentioned, the lock-in period of the investors that invested in Zomato during when the company acquired Blinkit does end today. One of the major investors that could sell their stake is SoftBank, that currently holds more than 3% stake in Zomato. Other investors that were also part of this lock-in period deal and hold chunk amount of shares is Tiger Global and Sequoia. The implied value of Zomato shares which SoftBank did receive during the Blinkit deal stood at 70.76 rupees per share, and currently Zomato did end at 92 rupees on Friday. I also have a few pointers from brokerage notes. Jeffrey states that the Blinkit's recent performance and Zepto's fundraise could help drive attraction to this segment. The brokerage values Blinkit at a rupees 25 per share of Zomato's fair value, which implies a 20% of the price target that it's recently assigned. And ending Morgan Stanley is also overweight on Zomato with a price target of 115 rupees. And the brokerage believes that this delivery regime sticks true, it could drive improvement in profitability sooner than expected. And the brokerage also expects Zomato's food delivery segment to improve its adjusted EBITDA margins by to 4% in FY26.
Interesting. Thank you so much for bringing us those details, Mika. And a stock to watch, certainly, RIL in trade today. Of course, near-term negatives could be if there is major selling by the large shareholders. That could be a short-term impact. But if you're looking at the valuation that Zepto has gotten and the fact that that same business for Zomato has not been valued very highly, this could potentially lead to a re-rating. We'll have to see if that does in fact pan out. In the meanwhile, let's talk about several bunch trades and block trades, as we've been calling it. There are several to talk about apart from anything that's brewing in Zomato as well. And Himansh is joining in to give us more details there. Himansh, what are you picking up on?
Hi, so good morning. So the block trails and bulk deals that have been happening since Friday. So first we have Paytm, where Anfintech Holdings sold 2.3 crore shares, representing 3.6% stake in the company for a little over 895 rupees. Now, this is a 1.7% premium to the offering, which was announced last week on Thursday. Societe Generale, Morgan Stanley, Citigroup Global Markets Mauritius, and Goldman Sachs Singapore were among the buyers, and Paytm was the most traded stock by volume on S&P BSE 500 index. Now, following this trade on Friday, wherein the buyers and sellers were not known immediately, the stock did climb over 3.8%, and this was the highest level it achieved since February 2022. Moving on to Amber Enterprises, the mid-cap operating in the consumer durable space also had a block trade, with Ascent Investment Holdings selling 12.6 lakh shares, which represented 3.7% stake in the company. On the other side, we had Government of Singapore and Monetary Authority of Singapore purchasing 2.15% and 0.4% stake, respectively, at 2,800 rupees a share. Talking about bulk deals, we had Geo Financial Services, where Motilal Oswal Mutual Fund bought 3.72 crore shares, representing a 0.6% stake in the company, and the purchase aggregated up to 754 crores. Then we have Virescent Renewable Energy Trust, where India Grid completed its acquisition after buying 20.1 crore shares. Terra Asia Holdings, L&T, amongst several others, were on the other side, buying at rupees 114 apiece. Selling at 114 apiece. Virescent Renewable is a SEBI-registered infrastructure investment trust with a total of 16 solar projects and a capacity of 538 megawatt peaks. Now, these will be added to India Grid's portfolio post-acquisition. Lastly, you have Uno Minda, where Nirmal Kumar Minda sold 74.5 lakh shares at 602 apiece. Now, the stock extended its decline to a third day, and the trading volume was a little over the 17 times daily moving average. So these were the bulk and block deals to watch out for.
Thanks, Ivansh, for getting us the details. So we will continue to watch out for these names in trade today as well as to how they perform. But apart from these stocks, a lot of other names and stocks that are in focus as well, Alex. You have names like Bharat Electronics, BEML, Somani Ceramics, Crompton, Adani Group of companies as well. In fact, Saloni is standing by to get us more in terms of, what is the reason for these names to be in focus today. Saloni, good morning.
Good morning. So first, as you said, we have Bharat Electronics that has received new defense and non-defense orders worth almost rupees 3,300 crore during July and August. This includes the order worth rupees 1,075 crore that the company received from Hindustan Shipyards on Friday for the supply of combat management systems, communication systems, electronic welfare systems, and other sensors for fleet support ships. These orders are in addition to the rupees 8,091 crore orders which the company has already received. So with this, Bharat Electronics has in all received orders worth rupees 11,380 crores till now in FY24. Then we have BEML that received export orders worth $19.71 million from a Russian company for dozer BD 355. That is a crawler dozer used for mining and construction. This contract is to be executed in different phases starting August this year. Next is Linde India. So the company was awarded a letter of acceptance by the Steel Authority of India for the installation of 1,000 tons per day cryogenic oxygen plant at Rourkela on a construct, operate and maintain basis for a period of 20 years from the date of commissioning of the plant and ancillary facilities, with a provision of renewal for a further period of 5 years on a basis of mutual agreement. Then there is Somani Ceramics. So the company is to invest rupees 33 crore in its subsidiary Sudha Somani Ceramics by the way of subscription of equity and or preference shares. Additionally, the company is to sell 51% stake in its subsidiary, that is Somani Fine Vitrified. So the consideration to be received from the sale is rupees 4.28 odd crores, and the sale is to be completed by 25th December this year. Next is Crompton Greaves Consumer Electricals that has launched its mass premium induction products that are high-speed Java and high-speed Toro for the domestic market. And lastly, we have a news report on Adani Group that is in talks with Abu Dhabi-based international holding company and Abu Dhabi Investment Authority to raise an estimated $2 billion by selling stake in its subsidiaries. So the group intends to pair stakes in its holding company, that is Adani Enterprises, and some infrastructure businesses such as Adani Ports and Special Economic Zones. The group might also sell stake in firms such as Adani Energy Solutions, Adani Green Energy, Adani Energy Solutions, and Adani Total Gas. So the company intends to use these funds for capital expenditure and the company plans and the expansion plans of the businesses. So the company is yet to officially confirm this news.
All right. Thanks so much for that update, Saloni. All of these are stocks to watch and could react. And we've seen over the past few weeks that there has been a lot of stock-specific action. We've got more, in fact, news to talk about. And Rishi is joining in to give you more details on the stocks that he's listed. Rishi, what do you have for us?
So firstly, there's Karur Vyasa Bank, which opened another 10 new branches, so taking its total count to 822. Of this, 6 were in Tamil Nadu, 2 in Andhra Pradesh, and 1 each in Telangana and Karnataka. And so far, apart from the 10, it has opened another 4 branches in this quarter. This will take its ATM as well as cash recyclers network. It will increase the network by another level. Then we have Indostar Capital Finance, which has sold a significant part of its legacy corporate loan book to Phoenix ARC, that is Asset Reconstruction Company. This sale consists of certain accounts that were tagged in the stage 2 sale, and it includes an outstanding dues of about 900 and odd crores. And the Phoenix ARC is expected to set up a trust to monitor how the real estate progress pan out. And apart from this, this arrangement will also enable Indostar to focus more and more on its core retail lending business. In fact, its retail lending as part of its total loan will increase to 95% from the current 85%. Then we have NMDC Steel, which made a press release saying that its Nagarnar steel plant, which is in Chhattisgarh, it produced hot roll coil in 9 days, in just 9 days from hot metal. So that is a significant achievement. It's a really short span of time for producing hot roll coils. And as it completely commissions it, it will boost its production capacity by another 3 million tons, which is the capacity of the plant. The key point of this plant is that the supply linkages, it is really good because from its iron ore mines, it is just 100 kilometers away, which is a really short distance as well. Then we have India Grid Trust, which completed 100% acquisition of Virescent Renewable Energy Trust. And the acquisition was for 4,000 crores. Of this, 1,500 crores will be funded by raising equity, and the rest will be through a combination of debt and cash. This will further add another 16 solar projects, which is held by 15 special project vehicles with a capacity of 538 megawatts. Then we have Indian Oil and L&T, which is quite a big news that they both are incorporating a joint venture named GH4 India Private Limited. So this joint venture is primarily for the development of green hydrogen and its derivatives as well, including green ammonia, methanol, etc. It will basically indulge in production of green hydrogen and these derivatives. And the authorized capital of the joint venture is 3 crores. With Indian Oil, L&T, I missed Renew all as well. So all of them will be in a JV. And they'll be splitting the 3 crores into 1 crore each.
Right. That's an interesting list as well, and a development that we are staring at. Thank you, Rishi, for getting us all the details. In fact, we are just a couple of minutes away from pre-open, so would not take a lot of your time. In fact, that will be a wrap. Stay tuned to BQ Prime to watch all the action that will be panned out during the day. Thank you.